Hillary Clinton just gave her most extensive critique of Donald Trump yet in a big speech attacking the threat that he would pose with what passes for his foreign policy. And so far, the media is absolutely loving it, but will TYT love it? We're going to find out in another session of the TYT Supreme Court.
Some different justices for this court.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit. Yeah, I missed that. We don't do enough of those. So in case you missed the speech or you haven't seen the quotes, the highlights, they're all over the place. But just in case, Jared Jackson has gone through and culled some of the best lines from it. Here's the first section. We'll have a few.
His economic plans would add more than 30 trillion, that's trillion with a T, $30 trillion to our national debt over the next 20 years. He has no ideas on education, no ideas on innovation. He has a lot of ideas about who to blame, but no clue about what to do. None of what Donald Trump is offering will make America stronger at home, and that would make us weaker in the world. He says he doesn't have to listen to our generals or admirals, our ambassadors and other high officials, because he has, quote, a very good brain. He also said, I know more about ISIS than the generals do. Believe me. You know what? I don't believe him. He says climate change is a hoax invented by the Chinese. And he has the gall to say that prisoners of war like John McCain aren't heroes. Exactly. He praises dictators like Vladimir Putin and picks fights with our friends, including the British Prime Minister, the Mayor of London, the German Chancellor, the President of Mexico, and the Pope. So the stakes in global statecraft are infinitely higher and more complex than in the world of luxury hotels. We all know the tools Donald Trump brings to the table: bragging, mocking, composing nasty tweets. I'm willing to bet he's writing a few right now.
And he actually was. He had many nice tweets against Hillary Clinton after that speech.
Well, one of the things that people criticize him for, including Hillary Clinton, is his treatment of women. And one of his tweets ended with, "She doesn't even look presidential." She just mocked all the substance of your foreign policy and said that all you have is stupid, nasty tweets. And you sent a stupid, nasty tweet commenting about her looks. Well played, Donald. Way to prove her wrong.
Cenk, you just don't understand his good brain. He's a really good brain. And good things come out of it, lots of good things.
So she was enormously mocking in that speech of Trump, which I rather enjoyed.
I like that part of it.
It was enjoyable. But again, it's just, her message is, I'm not Trump. That's her, I mean, she's so lucky to have Trump to run against, right? Because that's her, she still is, it's like, yay, I'm less horrible than him. You know, she's like, we all know his tools, mean tweets and everything. Well, what are her, when she said that I don't believe him, stop doing that. Because it turns out, Rasmussen just did a poll, Donald Trump twice as more trustworthy than Hillary Clinton, according to Rasmussen. I'm just saying.
No, not twice as much. Rasmussen's
I'm just saying according.
No, I hear you. No, he does beat her in many polls on trustworthy, which is
Yeah.
frightening, but not
insane.
twice as much. That's an outlier.
Okay.
But I mean, to be in the ballpark of Trump, let alone losing to Trump on trustworthiness, is a disaster. But I still disagree with you, Jimmy.
About what?
I think she should attack him on every front. I think she should say, I don't believe him.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
You know, when he says, oh, believe me. So I got news for you. I don't. I think that's a good line. I'm happy with that line.
And also, it's the sort of thing that I think Marco Rubio did a little bit, where when you mock a verbal tick of his, a line that he always uses, it primes people when they hear it in the future.
That's
oh,
right.
that's BS.
That's right.
I've heard this made fun of before. And he has a lot of those, and he can't help it because it's not scripted. It's the words that he goes to. Everybody has them.
Everybody should
His are more ridiculous.
Everybody should be saying tremendous all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
a mess.
A mess and tremendous.
Disaster.
It'll make him out to be a joke.
I mean, you know, given Hillary Clinton's shortcomings as a, on the stump, you know, like that she's not, you know, she can't deliver those lines like her husband or like Barack Obama or like most members of the Senate or, you know.
This guy used to know.
I thought it was a really good speech, and I think that like when it was the things that I noted in it were the and I think you agree, Cenk, the specificity. The lines that are sort of generic campaign lines are less interesting than literally he has no ideas on education, no ideas on innovation, right? And then quoting him about, he says we don't have to listen to our generals and ambassadors because he has, quote, a very good brain. I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me. Like that's, again, when it gets specific to me, it gets good. And that goes to your point because then they'll note it when they call it. What's Trump's ISIS plan? He won't say. He is literally keeping it a secret.
Yeah,
which is the secret, of course, is that he has no idea how to stop ISIS. Yeah. Donald Trump doesn't know the first thing about Iran or its nuclear program. Ask him; it will become clear very quickly. Again, the generic lines hit less. The sort of theatrical lines but when she gets into the substance, I thought it was good.
Okay, I want to go to the second set of it. It's what we have left of her speech, and then we can rule, I guess, in the TYT Supreme Court. So here's a little bit more of the highlights from her speech.
Donald Trump says we shouldn't have done the deal. We should have walked away. But that would have meant no more global sanctions and Iran resuming their nuclear program and the world blaming us. So then what? War? Telling the world, good luck, you deal with Iran? Of course, Trump doesn't have answers to those questions. Donald Trump doesn't know the first thing about Iran or its nuclear program. Ask him. It'll become very clear very quickly. There's no risk of people losing their lives if you blow up a golf course deal. But it doesn't work like that in world affairs. Unlike him, I have some experience with the tough calls and the hard work of statecraft. I wrestled with the Chinese over a climate deal in Copenhagen, brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, negotiated the reduction of nuclear weapons with Russia, twisted arms to bring the world together in global sanctions against Iran, and stood up for the rights of women, religious minorities, and LGBT people around the world. I have sat in the Situation Room and advised the president on some of the toughest choices he faced. So I'm not new to this work, and I'm proud to run on my record because I think the choice before the American people in this election is clear.
What I love about the section on Iran where she says, ask him, it'll become very clear that he doesn't know, is that with most politicians, they would immediately bone up on it. He won't. He actually won't know anything in a month.
He won't care.
No.
And it won't matter.
How do you rule?
All I can say is that she's the wrong messenger. She's just the wrong messenger. I just got done watching a video clip of Micah Brzezinski and Andrea Mitchell almost have a nervous breakdown over the IG report. Right? And they're like, I don't want to be the one saying this, but it feels like she's lying right to our faces. That's a quote from Micah. So her sitting up there trying to talk about how he's a liar. And by the way, touting her foreign policy experience, when everybody thinks about her in foreign policy, I don't know about you, but I think of two things. I think of the Iraq War and I think of Libya. Two are the biggest blunders. She helped set the table for the destabilization of the Middle East, which sets the table for the Syria thing, which is setting the table for World War III. So because we already had Republicans saying they'd shoot down Russian jets over Syria. She wanted to fly no-fly zone. I mean, all that stuff sets the table for World War III. She's already proven that she's a warmonger and that her judgment is horrible. So her trying to tout her judgment, she's bringing up stuff nobody knows about.
Overall, do you against the speech?
I liked it. I thought she was good.
I'm going to count you as against the speech vote. So look, here's my take on it. I actually agree with certainly one thing Jimmy's saying, which is I know this is going to sound not how you would normally do things, but stay away from your record. I'm serious because it turns people off. And so you think the Washington crowd likes it when you talk about your experience, but Americans don't like it because they think of Iraq and Libya. And you mentioned LGBT. You fought for LGBT rights throughout the world, except here in 2012 when they were fighting for gay marriage and you weren't.
Everybody on the most people in the LGBT community think she was on the right side. So
okay,
well, saying that you're in a distinct minority.
Okay, I hear you. I'm in the minority that knows facts.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're misrepresenting. As
okay,
you guys,
she was against gay marriage in 2012.
She's been on the
correct or incorrect?
Yeah, it's correct. So this will be the one goddamn story we'll provide no context to. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll keep that in
The other
mind. We'll just keep
context
providing
is
no context.
When they needed help and when they were in the middle of the fight, she said, "Oh no, you guys go ahead and win first, then I'll switch sides." But okay, all right. Anyway,
No context.
But
No context.
But I think we've proven my point, which is don't get into your record. Don't get into your record. All you should do throughout the entire campaign is attack, attack, attack. This election is, and so you say, hey, she's a bad messenger. The best friend she has is Donald Trump, that she's running. That's her only chance. Roughly right? Good. So then attack Donald Trump. This election, if Hillary Clinton's going to win, it has to be about Donald Trump and not about Hillary Clinton.
You're right.
So, so for most of the speech, that is what she did. And so I agree with Ben that on the specifics, of course, she does much better. I think that, like here's a combination of being, mocking Trump, but having some degree of specifics here. When she said the line, imagine if he had not just his Twitter account at his disposal when he's angry, but America's entire arsenal. I think that's a great line, right? Because you know how thin-skinned he is, and she mentioned it about 8 times in the speech, and say, imagine if instead of sending an angry tweet, he's sending bombs. And then everybody goes, oh, that's true, right? So in that sense, I thought she did a great job. She kept the focus mainly on Trump. She attacked him both in substance and stylistically. Now, you don't want to just say he's stupid because that's the attack that they tried against Ronald Reagan and it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
But
Americans are okay with stupid.
Yeah,
right.
Out.
But you have to get him to expose his own stupidity. And the way that you do that is get under his skin. So once you got under his skin, he'll get defensive and he'll start flailing and he'll do your job for you.
Yes.
Get under his skin, hand him rope. And I think she largely did that in this speech. So I vote yes. I liked it. I thought it was a good speech overall.
Yeah, this is what I mean when I say this. Like, we're not a country that cowers behind walls. We lead with purpose and we prevail. Like, there was a fair amount of that. I'm not interested in that. I like the...
Not from her anyway.
Yeah, not from
She doesn't deliver those lines well.
She said we don't cower behind walls.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw a videotape of her saying that I voted for a barrier because they said you were for a wall. She goes, well, I voted for a barrier. So this is why she's the wrong messenger. Yeah. And if she was a better politician, when she comes back to answer those kind of accusations, she would make us believe it. But since she's a bad politician, we don't believe it and we see through her.
I don't know if she's a bad politician. It's a complex. She's not. She's a bad candidate, or not. She's a super flawed candidate, and those flaws are coming out. And but it doesn't help to have her record distorted and made it worse than it already is. Well, and so I'm comfortable with. I'm not comfortable supporting her because of that bad record. I'm just saying I don't know. We need to go beyond the truth in criticizing Hillary Clinton. That Iraq War vote is there.
Yes,
it
is
there. A chance to lead, and she didn't lead. She didn't take us to war in Iraq, but she had a chance to lead in the opposition, and she passed on that opportunity. A very public pass when she was the most important Democrat in the country.
So, my point about her being a bad politician is just this. When she's not in the public eye, her poll numbers are sky high. As soon as she starts politicking, as soon as she starts campaigning, her numbers go down. And now the White House just said, Carl Bernstein just said yesterday or 2 days ago on CNN, that the White House are afraid that her numbers are in free fall. So the more she campaigns, the worse off for her. That's what I mean. She's a bad politician. That people don't like her the more she talks. Opposite with Bernie Sanders.
I don't disagree. There's no question that but there's some reasons why she's not liked. And what I want to do for Bernie supporters who think that the media is in the bag for Hillary is not. There's one reason why it's in free fall. She's had more negative stories written about her since 1992 than anyone in the history of the world over a 24-year period.
But that was a selling point before the campaign.
I got it. They were
and
wrong.
Now they're switching.
They got it wrong. It was wrong to think. Maybe it was wrong to think of her experience as a selling point. I don't know. It's not. Nobody's in the bag. Well, not nobody's in the bag for her. There are plenty of people in the bag for her. I got it. There are plenty of people in the bag for her. But she gets beat up on a regular basis, and she is particularly inadept at handling getting beat up. Amazingly inadept at getting beat up.
Look, this is another massive disagreement you and I have. You're right about since 1992. You're right about the 24 years. There was a curious pocket of not beating her up When she was running against Bernie Sanders.
During the primary.
Okay, so
That's wrong. You're
I know.
wrong. You've
you and
never
I
been more
disagree.
wrong.
I know,
But
just said
you
I was
look
wrong
at it.
about LGBT
You're,
rights.
because
What I'm
it's part of the
indisputably
goddamn
correct.
same thing. It's part of the same thing.
Indisputably correct.
I'm going to have to declare a mistrial,
Yeah,
I think.
indisputably correct at no context. Lots of things are indisputably correct. She supported Goldwater, so she's against civil rights. That's true.
That's not fair.
So I get it. That one's not fair, but yours isn't. You
No,
won't.
because she changed her position and she's had 30
She changed her position
40
on this
years.
too.
No, she changed her position on gay marriage in 2012. You don't get a pass on that. You get a pass on Goldwater. That was 40 years ago when you were a kid.
What was her
right?
position on gay marriage before that? What was her position on gay rights before that?
Wait. Now, so those are two different things.
Yeah, no. What was gay rights? What did she want about gay people? Did she want equal rights for gay people?
She said marriage is between a man and a woman, and she believes in traditional marriage all the way through 2012.
Right.
She did.
And what was the alternative that she provided to that?
Civil unions.
Right. Okay.
Okay, that's fair, right? And that is a position. That is a position that I find to be reprehensible. So you don't, I do.
It was had by many people in the LGBT community
Right.
because they thought it was the practical, pragmatic solution.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the guys looking for gradualism turned out to be wrong.
I agree. They did turn out to be wrong.
Okay, and I think she was, as usual, in the crowd that was wrong. A wonderful experience. That's why I'm telling you.
I got it, but what you just said there over the last 22 seconds is more true than just she was against it, suggesting to people, sending a message to incredibly loyal listeners that you have, that she was just, period, against LGBT rights. That's the suggestion that you make, and you misrepresent it when you say it. And you've done it again and again and again and again and again on issues related to
the
her.
Iraq War and the LGBT issue is very similar. When there is a fight, she will not show up. She won't have your back. She'll have her own back. The Iraq vote, a lot of people are going to die, maybe hundreds of thousands, but I got a political career to worry about here. Oh, you're in the middle of a fight on gay marriage. Well, I'll support lesser rights for you gay people. And then after you win, I'll be here to take political advantage. So we disagree, Ben. We disagree. You think I'm being unfair to her. I think I'm being more than fair to her. Okay, that's why I'm telling you.
What you just said again, you just did a better job in the last 50 seconds than you do when you leave it with the simple 5-second big point that Hillary Clinton's a bigot, which is what you're saying.
I can't do a 58-second or 58-minute disposition every time we talk about that one issue.
It didn't take 58 minutes. It took 58 seconds. And I think there's always 58.
So you want me to say every time, no, she was not responsible for the Iraq War.
I want you to tell the truth every time.
No,
Yeah.
it is the truth,
No,
man.
I want you to tell the
She was
truth.
against gay marriage until 2012. She was against it, because she's a craven politician. That is the truth. But this is why I'm telling you, don't make this campaign about your issues. You'll lose, Hillary Clinton. You see what happens when we get into your policy positions? You're going to get into a bad, ugly fight. Don't do it. Make the election about Trump. Otherwise, I'm telling you right now, you're going to lose. And I'm not telling you that because I don't like you. I'm telling you that because I don't want Donald Trump to be president. Make this election about Hillary Clinton, and we're all screwed.
I agree.